Welcome back, friends. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how I top and train plants. So we're going to be going through what we call the bud trainer method, which involves one topping, some training, flipping it to flower, and then turning something like this into a plant like this. Now, since I know you can probably get a plant to this stage, we're going to start off this video with stage 2, which is transplanting. If you're wondering what step 1 is, it is planting and germinating your seed. Today, I'm going to be going through step 2 of the bud trainer method, which is transplant day. Now, I've got a nice little seedling here. It's got 1, 2, 3, fourth node starting to come out. So this is about the time that we want to check our roots. The bud cups make this super easy. Just got to pop the bottom and this entire root ball will come up. I can see here, not sure if you can get a glimpse of that, but there are roots coming out from all the way around there. They're pretty high up in the root ball. So that tells me we are good to transplant. Got a little bit of a mess going here, but that's okay. We can clean up later. I've just unfolded our brand new 3-gallon bud pots. Nice yellow handles popping with some yellow trim. We really love this new design. The 3-gallon mark is just below the grommets. So I will start off this activity here by filling up our bud pot with some of the cocoa perlite mix. That's my favorite thing to grow in. You can do this with ProMix HP. You can do any type of soil that you want, your own custom soil. I personally love cocoa because it's as close as you can get to a hydro grow without all the challenges and risks that come with a deep water culture setup. So we'll start by filling this up. All right, now that I've filled up my bud pot with cocoa, I want to make my hole that the plant is inevitably going to go into, and this will be its final home. So as I said, we love to plant directly into our bud cups, makes transplanting and checking the roots very easy, but we never said solo cups aren't good for some stuff. What I have found the solo cups are great for is creating that hole for your seedling to go in. So I'm just going to slowly rotate this solo cup, make a little hole, dig it out, and if I can get a nice little pocket around that solo cup, I know that my seedling in the bud cup is going to fit right in there. Now that I have my solo cup hole in here, I'm going to do a little rotation there to make it a little bit wider to get ready for our seedling. Now, before I put the seedling in, we're going to use a little bit more ProMix Connect. This is the mycorrhizal fungi. It actually does come in the cocoa perlite mix. I'm going to add a little bit extra because, hey, I want my roots to get the best start possible in their final home here. Now, again, we're going to pop the bottom, grab the seedling. It's a little dry, so it's falling apart just a little bit on me. Make sure to remove that bottom plate. We've got lots of different root ends here, not just a single tap root. We now have our seedling in its new home into some very dry cocoa. So it's time to give it its first watering. And I want to make sure to do this very evenly, very slowly. As I said, it's dry cocoa and has a tendency to have water kind of run through it if you water too quickly. So that's why we're doing this slow rotation. I'm doing a bit of a wave pattern with the actual water here, and definitely want to water around the edges first so that the roots have to search for water in their new home. We want to make them work for that robust structure, or not make it too easy for them to just continue to grow straight down. They want to grow out and to the sides, bigger roots, bigger fruits, more healthy plant, and you can really get to some high frequency watering if you do this right. You know, by the time you're in week 3 of flower, your whole final container is filled with roots, drinking lots, growing strong, and going to give you great results by the end of flower. So now that she's in her new home, I'm going to let her settle in for a couple days, and we'll come back when this has 6 nodes so that we can do our first topping. And we are back just 7 days after transplanting. This lady is doing fantastic. And it's time for the first topping. We now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plus a little bit extra. So 6 nodes. And we're going to be topping above the 5th node today, removing the bottom node. It's kind of hard to see this bottom node because it is very tiny, but it is there. I like the second node. It's growing some pretty big branches already, so that will be the lowest node that we keep, and we'll just jump right into this topping. So essentially what I'm doing now is taking away that main apex cola that would, inevitably form if we didn't top this plant. The 2 shoots on that 5th node are going to become our top branches, and ideally the bottom nodes are going to catch up to that. So through training, which will happen in the next part of this video, we're going to foster that even canopy and try to slow down that top 2 shoots a little bit so that the bottoms can catch up and we get those nice 8 branches that we can tie into the grommets or use some bud clips if they're too high up in the canopy. So without further ado, I'm going to leave a little bit of a stub when I do top this. And it's a very simple process. It scares some new growers, but totally fine to do. Take a little snip there. Some people do it with their hands as well. Whatever method you like, as long as you're getting a little bit of a nub on top here, leaving a little bit of a tip, you will avoid some splitting when this grows out a little bit more. So we now have the top done. I'm going to remove the bottom 2 shoots, so that first node, because they're just not going to become strong branches. They're super stunted compared to even the node above them. So that tells me that it's not going to produce the buds that I'm trying to get from this plant, and there's no real sense in keeping it. I'm going to leave everything else on this plant. The fan leaves below that second node are still going to be giving some nutrients to the plant and catching some light. So she is ready to go back into the tent. I'm also going to water it again because it's getting pretty light. I'm not quite at the stage where you have to water every day, but probably in the next week we're going to be pretty close to that growing in cocoa. Soil a little bit different because it just retains more moisture than cocoa does. This is pretty much a hydroponic medium. But yeah, in 2 weeks, maybe even less, because I'm growing in cocoa, these top 2 shoots will be long enough to train, along with the remaining 3 nodes below it. So back to the tent she goes. Welcome back. It's been 9 days since I topped this plant that I'm doing the bud trainer method on. So as you can see, vigorous growth. It's super healthy, but super bushy since we've topped it. These lower nodes are definitely coming in very strong. So I'm happy with that. And it's time to open it up so that they get as much light exposure as possible. And I can flip this to flower relatively early so that we can move on to the next grow after that. But today is training day. The top node is definitely long enough for some bud clips. The bottom branches are super long, so I can start tying down to the bud pots as well and get a nice flat canopy. So what I'm going to do is start with the lower nodes with some bud huggers. I've got some old pieces that I've kept around. It's very easy to just kind of straighten them out. You can give them a quick wipe down with some dish soap and hot water. They look pretty much brand new, and then we just store them so that we don't have to waste any bud huggers unnecessarily. So let's start over here with one of the bottom branches. I'm only going to tie it down on the top half of the branch. The lower parts of the branch are much more woody at this stage already, and that's going to continue to happen as the branches get older. They get more woody, more rigid, and breaks can happen easier. So I've tied down one branch here, and we'll slowly go around on the lower branches first with bud huggers, and then do some bud clips on the top branches. I want to make sure that I'm doing it symmetrically, so I'm going to use the opposite grommet for the opposite branches and keep this spaced out kind of like a pizza slice. So we got 8 branches that are from the top down going to look like the slices of our pizza. So again, this method works with a single topping. You can also do a second round of topping at this stage. I'm probably not going to do a second topping and just flip it to flower probably about 3 days after this training session here, because this plant, although it looks a little bit small maybe for some of you, is going to double or triple in size during the stretch phase of flower. So we really want to get it into flower at this point, sometimes even a bit sooner, because she's going to be drinking a lot, and bigger plants sometimes are a bit harder to manage as well. So okay, so I have the 4 lowest branches pulled down, so that canopy is already getting wider and wider. I might be able to do the 3rd branches to the grommets as well, and I think I'm going to do that. So you get some choices with training, right? You don't have to tie every branch down to a grommet. You can do all bud clips if you want to. You just might not be able to get quite as much control of each branch. So using the grommets, obviously, each branch is getting pulled in a specific direction, whereas the bud clips are great for just kind of separating 2 branches that are close together. But they're going to kind of do their own thing if you're using the clips. Now, the main goal of training is to keep an even canopy. So if I put bud clips on these top 2 branches, in theory, I believe I'm still going to have these 2 branches sticking out a little bit higher than the rest. So I might have to do some additional training on those top 2 branches, but I'm pretty happy with the canopy height with bud clips on the top and the rest tied down. And I'm going to give it a couple days just to recover. With training, you are increasing the stress, and if you flip the flower too quickly, sometimes that can result in some herming if you've stressed it out too much. So definitely want to give it a few days after topping or training sessions before you flip to flower, so that the plant can kind of recover from that stress before taking on a new stress like a light cycle change. So next time you see me, we will be into flower, and I'll probably do another update 3 weeks into flower so that we can do our defoliation and some lollipopping, get rid of some of the shoots inside the canopy here that aren't going to turn into nice buds, so that we end with very little popcorn buds and just those really nice premium colas that we're after. All right, the bud trainer method plant right here has fully recovered from that last stage of training and topping. So we are going to, well, we already have flipped it to flower for the last 3 days. She's doing absolutely great. I'm gonna, continue to feed this plant daily throughout flower, but for the next, I'd say 2.5 weeks, we're pretty much just gonna leave her alone to do her thing, at which point we will look at some defoliation and pruning away some of the small weak branches that aren't going to result in good buds. It is getting absolutely crowded in the flower room right now. Our bud trainer method plant is doing fantastic. It's getting pretty much a jungle underneath that canopy right now, but I'm not going to touch it quite yet because we're only about halfway through the stretch phase. I added in my trellis net up top here, which I usually add more for supporting the buds rather than training that, because I've already got my stalk structure set up. Definitely, if I had less plants in this room, you could spread that out even more, do what's closer to probably even a scrog with that main stalk structure set up already, but I like to have a little bit more variety. So 5 plants total in this room, 1 on the far left outside of this 4x4 frame. Definitely getting a little bit congested in here in a good way. Lots of growth. Everything's looking quite healthy. So again, we'll do that 3-week defol, and then we're just on to packing on weight at that point. All right, stretch phase is over. Let's jump into the flower room and see how our ladies are doing. Stretch phase is over. They made it through the trellis net that we made, and it is time for a defoliation on our bud trainer method right there. These are Mike's Cross, and they're doing fantastic. So very impressed, Mike. Good job to you. I'm going to be clearing out most of the foliage below that line, shoots and fan leaves combined, and then it'll be stacking weight from there on in. So let's jump in here and do this. You can do this with your hands if the leaves aren't snapping off really nicely. What I like to do is just get in there with my trimmers, my pruning shears, if you don't have nice little trimmers like this. But essentially this is simple, but sometimes scary for newer growers. You think you're taking off too much, but once you are growing at a high level and your yield is significant and you're hand trimming, you're going to realize pretty quickly that, hey, maybe I don't need all of these lower branches with popcorn bud. I personally prefer flower to rosin and hash. Might not be a popular opinion, but flower is the way for me. So I get rid of a lot of this stuff that people who wash their plants might actually keep. So again, there's 1,000 different ways to grow these plants. I'm doing 2 different ways right now with the main line on my right and the bud trainer methods. Otherwise, now a lot of you might be wondering, Kurt, if you're going to cut this all out anyways, why not do it earlier? Well, it's pretty simple. The stretch phase only lasts for that first 3 weeks of flower, and then your plant has grown as tall as it's going to go. So we don't really want to stunt the branches during that stretch phase. We don't always know which branches are going to come up the strongest either. So just kind of let it grow for that first 3 weeks. And yes, there's lots of growth here that you could say is wasted because we did that. But again, if we defoliate early, stunt the growth, we might end up with very tiny plant and no yield anyways. So that's why we do it this way. And again, there's subjectivity to how much you can defoliate. Some people will do a lot less than this. Some people might do even more. I think H likes to do an even heavier defoliation than I'll be doing because he's been growing for longer than I have, and he's super sick of trimming popcorn bud. But for those of you who lollipop and do defoliation, you can speak to the benefits of it. It is somewhat controversial. You know, guys like Jorge Cervantes, for example, tons of respect for him. He doesn't really think defoliation's necessary. Certainly a lot of people that think nature's way is the best way. I can understand that argument for sure, but I don't know. I think nature's way benefits survival of the fittest all the time. And although these are resilient plants, if you can give them a more optimal treatment than they would receive in the wild, I don't know, I think you get good results. So again, lots of ways to grow this plant. If you don't like the way we're doing it, do it your own way. That's it for today though. Pretty clear underneath that canopy now, so I've just saved myself a ton of trimming time, and also probably reduced the risk of things like mold or pest problems, because pests really do enjoy those microclimates underneath the canopy where humidity can get pretty high, heat can get pretty high, and they like it nice and cozy in there. Exciting day because I get to chop this Big's donut from my friend Mike at 420 Things. This plant is absolutely gorgeous. The buds are super fat, super crystally. I did a bud trainer method on this, as you know from watching this video. And just check the trichomes. Got a nice mix of about 90% cloudy and milky, and the rest were amber. Of course, there's probably a few clear in there that we don't necessarily want, but hard to get a perfect timed harvest. I've already removed some of the horizontal trellis lines from my last chop, but I'm going to remove a few more of those horizontal lines so that the back plants stay nice and sturdy while I harvest this lady. I'm also going to remove some of the bud huggers, chop it right at the base of the stem, hang the full plant for 7 to 10 days, and we will be on to, of course, trim jail. So let's get to it. All right, first things first, time to remove some of the bud huggers. Very important in veg, but once it gets into flower, these branches definitely hold their shape, and the trellis net does the supporting. So could have probably taken these off earlier. Of course, that's just kind of an unnecessary task to do while it's flowering. It's not hurting the plant by leaving them on. So I'll just take these. I like to straighten them back out so that I can reuse them. And speaking of reusing bud huggers, I have a very long piece that I've been reusing for hanging the plant. So once I chop at the base here, gently wiggle this out of the remaining trellis net, I'm going to tie that to the base of the plant, hold it up for you to see how beautiful and big this plant's gotten. I'm also going to remove the rest of the fan leaves that do not have any trichomes on them, so that trimming's a little bit easier when I get there in about a week. So let's get to the exciting part. Drum roll, please. And, oh, that's thick. Okay, it's always nice when it sounds like that. You get this pot out of here. And this thing is an absolute beast, so might even lose a branch by wiggling it out of this, but that's okay. I'll just hang that if it happens. Mike, fantastic breeding job. First time breeder, but you wouldn't know it by the quality of the results here. Smells fantastic. I'm not an expert in terps, so I'm not going to tell you what it is. Maybe I'll get somebody with a better palate to tell me later. This is an absolute monster plant. I would really like it to come out in one, and I think we've done that. Beautiful. Woo! Look at the size of this plant. I gotta go to 0.5 view so you can get a better look at this thing. Bud trainer method. Massive buds galore. Heck yeah, Mike. All right, where's that long bud hugger? All right, wrap up this main stem. I want to give it a good twist so that it doesn't fall down during drying. All right, I'm gonna do the boring part of removing all these fan leaves off camera, but you get the point, and we'll see you in 7 to 10 days. probably closer to 10, the size of this beast. All right, mini trim jail stint is over. It is time to find out what this plant yielded us. I'm just gonna go cup by cup. I'll let you know the count as we go, and we'll find out together. 35 grams there. Nice dense buds. Very excited for this to cure. 35 plus 30 is 65. 65 plus 30 is 95. 95. Look at the size of this one. Man. 95 plus, let's get to 35 here. That takes us to 130. Need to go to the other jar already. So 130 plus 30 more, 31 is 161. 161 plus 29 is 190. It's been a long day, folks. 190 plus the rest of this equals, so that's 26. We have 215 grams roughly. 215 grams. Planted that seed 102 days ago. I would say Mike did a fantastic job with his breeding project, and well, I'll personally know more once this is cured for a couple weeks, but it was really good. But anyways, thumbs up to Mike. Thank you everybody for watching it. I hope you got a little something out of this. Maybe you want to try a new training style such as the bud trainer method. You can also check out the mainline video I just put out, although my results weren't quite as good as this one was. But until the next one, guys, thank you so much, and happy growing.